Welcome to another episode with your host, Robert E. Hansen, psychic medium, author, and public speaker.
I'd like to share a story with you guys called The Finger Painting. Several months back, I did a reading for a young couple that came to see me. It was really one of the more heartbreaking readings that I've ever done. Anytime I do work that involves the death of a child especially, it can bore a hole right through your chest. It's extremely painful. I often share this when I work in public or I write publicly. When parents have endured the loss of a child, I never witness a greater sorrow. And that came to visit my office just a few months ago, right before the Christmas holidays. A young couple came in to see me. They were probably in their mid-30s at the most. And as I've often described when I share about this story, it was as though two people were walking in, both holding up, one holding up the other. It was though the wife was leaning into the husband was leaning into the wife, like two broken figures walking into my building. And they sat down and, I explained briefly what to expect and what not to expect, and they set their recorders down. And the reading began to unfold. And as it unfolded, there was sadly their little child, their son, had come to a place where medically his illness was really, really getting out of control, despite the efforts of some wonderful physicians and doctors and experts in children's pediatric medicine. The illness, the infection was rising, the fever was continuing to climb, and there was an unseen enemy that kind of went through this child's system, through the bloodstream of the child, causing the child to slowly start to disappear. And eventually, the child did cross, the father sitting next to his bed, the mother in bed with her son, this little 3-year-old boy. And as death came, the mother wept and cried as the father did. They were praying and sobbing and crying. And finally, their little one eventually had to let go, his little body releasing, his soul moving on to eternal peace, eternal light. But for the parents, this was the end of their child's experience with them. They no longer were able to give him a bath or take him to daycare or watch him eat Cheerio cereal. All of that had dissolved in this one evening that he passed away and his body surrendered to his illness. The parents had come to see me, and I sat down as I shared, and I was talking to them and explaining to them about what had happened. I had actually experienced directly this death of the child and how he passed and who was there, and they kind of stared at me like, oh my gosh, this guy knows stuff that no one's supposed to know. And there was a lot more to it. Names were shared, and there was a reference to a grandmother that had passed away. And, they had asked me, well, how come my grandmother is in this reading? And I often say this to people, and I said it to these people, specifically to these heartbroken parents. Well, I hope you want to know that your little boy is not alone in the universe, that there are other people who love him very much that have surrounded him. For lack of a better word, they are the angels, the guardian souls that have come to give him comfort and peace. And they have him, they are with him. And they said, well, where are they? Where are they, Robert? And I said, well, the kingdom of heaven is within you. I think you probably know that if you've heard me speak before. And they said, yes, we've heard you mention that. This is the teaching of the great Christ figure, and he talked about the heaven within. And I said, this place is where your little boy never leaves. You can never lose him. You can never be without him. But for the parents, they were desperate for something else. They wanted to know a little bit more reassurance. Could you just kind of give us a little bit more of a hint, so to speak, that he's around, a sign that he is around? And I said, only if it's offered. And when I did that, all of a sudden I got like a mental flashcard, like a micro movie went off in my mind. And I saw finger painting, which is not uncommon to children in the toddler age, the preschool age, the nursery school, the kindergarten levels. They put fingers on paints and they paint palm prints all over stuff, or they paint sunshine, or they paint flowers, or they paint dogs. And it's a child's, expression of creativity, of artistic expression, and it's really quite cool. And if you've ever had children and you grew up with the kids, or you've done it yourself, you may have in your closet somewhere or folded in a memory book some, little craft that your child did, perhaps including finger paints. But this was a little different. I said, this fingerprinting seems to be on a shirt, kind of like on a shirt, like someone had a T-shirt that they didn't need or want, or they bought a brand new, something with a white T-shirt, and they kind of looked at me a little bit, and I said, I'm being told about the fingerprints on the shirt. Handprints, little 5-finger handprints of your 3-year-old little son. Do you understand this? And they first said, well, yes, we have a plaster mold of his hands that we did when he was sick in the hospital. It was kind of a craftsy thing that we did with him. He didn't realize we were doing it, why we were doing it, but we have that. And then the husband looked at the wife and he said, don't you remember? And she kind of cried and looked, and then her eyes popped open like a jack-in-the-box, and she says, oh my God, we have that shirt at home. I forgot that is in his bedroom. It is laying on top of his dresser. It is a shirt that he had made for my husband for Father's Day when he was only becoming 3 years old. He had just turned that age, and he did a little T-shirt with his hands on it, and actually his school teacher helped print my husband's name, Dad, the word Dad, on the shirt. And that shirt is sitting in my son's room as we speak. I wasn't even thinking about that shirt. So they both stared at me and they said, oh my God, Robert, no one could possibly know that. And I said, well, I don't know it either, but your son is so aware of it and so proud of it. And he's asking me to share this with you so you guys know that he is not only with you, but he's in his bedroom, he's in your house, he has never left you, and he's asking that you please take care of that T-shirt to let him know that he's always at your side. And with that, they began to cry, and frankly, I cried with them a little bit. I did. I wiped my face. I said, oh my God, I'm sorry. But I was so happy that this little soul came through and asked me to share about his little T-shirt that he made for his dad many months ago, before Christmas month, 6 months back, before the holidays. He made this T-shirt for his dad. And the mother and father held each other with both hands, and they walked out into the daylight, still fully heartbroken, but you could feel the peace, at least briefly, and the hope that rose, knowing that their son was kissing their wounds and holding them close. What a beautiful time that was. What a beautiful session that was. I just wanted to share this with you guys. Thank you for joining me.